Here come the Jazz. Ingles to inbound, 2.3 seconds left. The Jazz worked on this exact situation in practice yesterday in Atlanta. Ingles to inbound, favors with the near elbow. Trey comes first. Back pick for Hayward. He can't get it. Inbound to Trey. He steps back in the corner. Got it!
Oh, baby.
Trey
Oh,
got
baby.
Free ball left side. Jazz win it. How about that, kid?
Is there favors? We're ready to tip off. Are you? Let's do this.
Tip-off back at its home court advantage and ready to roll. Trey Burke's game winner highlights a 2-3 road trip for the Jazz, the NBA 5, and a ton of questions coming your direction, all on today's edition of Tip-Off. Pow. Cheers to all this morning. Sitting down for a little basketball talk, cup of coffee, or whatever you might do in the morning, or whatever you might be listening to today's show. I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. Welcome wherever you might be across the globe in our little state of Utah or anywhere around the world on this international game that is basketball. It's so glad to be with you. Our daily DeVar today, I'm going to try to bring that back up. The daily DeVar today is I got to sit down with Joe Ingles in, where were we? Toronto, and really just a nice, wonderful, fun young guy, 27 years old, great sense of humor, everything you know about Australians. His get-to-know was very insightful. I'll roll it out here shortly for you. I have screwed up the whole get-to-know process. I will try to get them back rolling and accelerated and have them going. It's my bad. So that will try to roll. I couldn't get them done on the road is all that happened on that. So really just another really nice young man, engaged to be married to the #1 netballer in Australia who and they are kind of like the power couple of Australia athletically. She's actually in town. He's all cute and fired up about it. So he's kind of a studly dude. Like, you know, I think he's an Australian kind of cool dude. Hangs with all the Australian football players, and all that kind of stuff. So he's really a really nice guy. All right, let's get right at it. Let's go do the NBA 5.
This is Dante Exum, and you are locked on Jazz.
The NBA 5 has to be led off with an interesting development that just happened a few moments ago. The Kings have announced they are protesting the Courtney Lee bucket at the end of the game. What's so interesting about this is it's gone through the replay center. So on, where were we? I was in New York, so that would be on Friday night. Courtney Lee caught an inbound pass on a really well-drawn play by Jeff Yeager. Maybe it was Thursday night, actually. I feel like we've actually done a tip-off since then. And they're arguing that the ball was tipped and that the replay center they didn't catch it on replay. This gets very interesting to me because they might be right, actually. It's very hard to tell. Clearly, the officials decided it was too hard to tell. But we have this whole brand new replay center, and the guys are watching it for the replay center, and they've worked on it. And I personally believe at some point the call's coming out of Secaucus, and I know that the NBA is really insistent right now that that's not the case, and obviously referee union is a big part of that, you know, and all of that. But this is an interesting moment. Is it possible that they just decide you can't make the right call from inside this arena? Did the replay center see the same thing and tell the officials that? This is a really curious one to watch. Will they overturn something that was through the replay center? So the story, just to make sure you understand the complete backstory on it, is Sacramento led by 1 in Memphis, I believe, and Memphis inbounded. Courtney Lee caught it, laid it up in time. But when you looked at the replay, it sure looked as though Ryan Hollins may have touched the basketball, which would have started the clock earlier, which means the shot wouldn't have counted, and they went through the whole procedure. It didn't happen. So we'll see. Kings also have signed Rudy Gay to a 3-year, $40 million extension. It's really a 2-year deal. He opts out on the new TV deal, but that's probably a pretty good deal for the Kings to get that done and hold this nucleus together. I think it goes into the factor that he's, you know, I don't know how they possibly would replace him. And frankly, with the Kings win last night against San Antonio and wondering whether they might have just beat Memphis, this team's good. And you know what? You know who I figure is probably a big deal to their success right now? Tyrone Corbin. Tyrone Corbin might not, you can have some things with coaching. You'll never have a problem with his personality. You'll never have a problem with his calming influence on players. And, there is an element here where he may be a large part of why DeMarcus Cousins is having some of this success. I mean, that's why they brought him in. He really couldn't be a more perfect guy for that. So, interesting. I mean, just kind of throw it out there. Keep an eye on it. Something's changed there, at least for the time being. I'm not buying it. I think I said this on Friday. I'm not buying it. I watch his body language. I think it's too much of a delicate dance. I think he has a negative influence emotionally on players. So I'm not on board entirely, but I think it's keep an eye on it. Might be a neat redemption story for Ty. Aaron Gordon, Orlando's rookie, fractured foot. Out, wasn't playing a great deal. In fact, the rookies are still scuffling miserably, which I'm taking actually not as a statement in any way that this rookie class is not as good as everybody said. I think it's a statement of how good the game is right now. Funny little thing that no one's talked about, by the way, is remember when everybody wanted retraction instead of expansion and you were going to get rid of one of the teams? We've kind of done that. Right? Philadelphia has almost no NBA players on it. So now all of a sudden the 29 NBA players are on different teams. So every team, if you think about the fact that there's 10 roster spots that aren't being used on that team, so a third of the league has one more player than it probably regularly would. It's an interesting, right? Think about that for a second. Aaron Gordon, by the way, was leading the rookies in win share and win share per one of the leaders in win share for 48 minutes. So he actually was playing probably better than any other rookie, despite only playing 15 minutes a game. Here's what's crazy about this rookie class. There are only 7 guys in the rookie class playing over 20 minutes, none of them playing over 30. There are only 2 guys in this rookie class averaging 11 points 10.6 points a game, Wiggins and Jabari. KJ McDaniel on Philly is the third leading scorer. Then you get to Marcus Smart, Gary Harris, and Aaron Gordon. Shooting percentage, Aaron Gordon's at 58, Doug McDermott's at 53. Andrew Wiggins is suddenly at 46, which should make people nervous. He's jumped up. He's not shooting his free throws well. But then you drop under 43, 44%. You have Jabari, Dante, Zach LaVine, Julius Randle before he got hurt. Elfrid Payton's only shooting 31%. 32. Marcus Smart shooting 31. Nick Stauskas is shooting 31. Rodney Hood's at 25. Tyler Ennis is at 25. Kyle Anderson is at 7. So a little surprising. And then the other one I would point out on this rookie draft that's surprising to me is second-round picks. Only Jordan Clarkson on the Lakers has played more than I think 11, maybe Joe Harris and KJ McDaniel, but otherwise almost nobody's played over 50 minutes. KJ McDaniel and Philly's played a lot, but again, that's Philly. That's a D-League team masquerading as an NBA team. Pretty interesting and surprising me. Kobe continues his insanity. Quote last night, I'd rather not do that, shoot as many times as he did last night, but you can't just sit back and watch crime happen in front of you. Can we just get a reality check on this for a second? Take a moment and look at the Lakers' numbers with Kobe on and off the floor. They are worse with him on the floor offensively, and they are tremendously worse with him on the floor defensively. I understand that Kobe's scoring 44 points a game or whatever ridiculous number he put up last night on a team that's not very good and took 34 shots, and everyone's talking about how Kobe's it's not productive. It's not healthy. It's not good for the Lakers. He's having a negative impact in every way, shape, or form. Quickly, we've got just about 10 games of sample size. The Jazz and the Pacers, and now the Knicks and the Mat and a few other teams have played 11. Some teams have played 9, but there's some interesting trends to throw out there early. Dallas is averaging 115 points per 100 possessions. It's by far the best in the NBA. Cleveland is up to the second best offensive team in the NBA. Pelicans third, Portland fourth, Toronto fifth. Realize anybody who's played Philadelphia suddenly skews the numbers. And if you look at that, Dallas has played Philadelphia and Toronto has, so you have to be a little careful. The real surprise is that Boston has become an offensive juggernaut. They're 6th in the league offensively, and the Jazz are 10th. I would say those are 2 of the biggest surprises. Philadelphia, Oklahoma City at the bottom. with Indiana and Charlotte and Milwaukee and Detroit, not a surprise. The bad offensive teams and Orlando, I mean, if you go look, the only surprising bad offensive team right now is San Antonio. I'm sure they'll get over it. But otherwise, every bad offensive team in the league right now is what you would anticipate. Defensively, the surprise is the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks are one of the better defensive teams. Jason Kidd has them as the number 2 defensive team, and the other surprise is that Dwight Howard is having an MVP year. And Houston is the number 1 offensive team. Steve Kerr's kept the Warriors defense, which says something about Bogut. Memphis right there, San Antonio there, and the Wizards. Randy Whitman deserves a lot of credit in Washington for what he's done defensively. They've always been a very, very good defensive team. And keep an eye on Portland. They've suddenly got 48 minutes of centers, and they have a very good defensive rating. The bad defensive teams are, as anticipated, Denver, Cleveland, Boston, Utah, Minnesota, and the Lakers are horrific. That, my friends, is your NBA 5.
Hi, everybody. This is Enes Kanter. I want to hear from you. Call 801-200-3738 and ask me a question. That is 801-200-3738 to ask me a question.
Thank you very much, Ennis. Jazz finish up their road trip, and please do that. We love to get your questions on the air. Jazz are 4-7. They've played more road games than anyone else. And the most interesting thing to me right now is everywhere I go after games, if I'm sitting around scouts or talking to people or talking to other announcers, you guys are really on the come. You guys are really close. I don't think we're that close. I do think we're on the come. I think when they say we're close, I think that's, and then the next comment's always, well, I mean, if you weren't in the West, and I think that's probably very, very true. If we weren't in the West, but we are in the West. So I'm not sure that I think we're that close. I think, frankly, we're still Dante's development away from really making an impact on things. And that's not a criticism of the other guys, but I do think that's where we are, and it frankly may be Dante and whoever we draft in this upcoming season. So I don't want to get the hopes too high, but I think it's impressive that everyone likes what we're doing. And what I really hear when I hear that from people is, wow, Quinn's got this team playing well. Guys are being used correctly. Things are stepping, you can see the effort, the buy-in, the energy is consistent, and that's very true. What the road trip is interesting to me because it's road games. No, well, really insightful. And that is the, some of these guys have always played better on home than they have on the road. And so Derek Favors particularly has been a guy that's a better road player than a home player. So when you suddenly look at a 5-game road trip, so really 5-game road trip takes an awful lot of consistency out of guys. And you start to look at the numbers. Hayward on the 5-game road trip, 21 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals a game, 49% from the field, 37% from 3, and 81% from the free throw line. That's ridiculous. 21 points a game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals over any 5-game stretch, but all on the road and while battling the flu, but that's just part of life in the NBA. Awesome. Really, really awesome. And pretty, frankly, awe-inspiring. Derek Favors, who has never been a good road player, 18 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks a game, 58% shooting, 2 clutch free throws late. Big time. Suddenly your 4 or 5-year veterans are stepping forward and establishing themselves. This is clearly their team, and they're both very good. And they're establishing night in and night out that they're ready to go. It's great to see. Alec Burks, 37 minutes a night. Talk about a burden. 5 rebounds, 3 assists a game from Alec on the road trip. He had a career-high 10 rebounds. Now, his plus-minus is terrible. Little disconcerting. -5 on his plus-minus. Other than Trevor Booker, worst plus-minus of anyone on the team on the road trip. Little eye-opening there. Only got to the line 2.8 times. All right, so you see Hayward and Favors, and look at where they are in their career. And here's Alec getting the experience, and then eventually he can step. It takes some time. I thought Ennis, only 25 minutes a night, clearly didn't have the great graces of the coaching staff every now and then with some of his minutes played. Bad matchup in New York. His defense is at times deplorable, but I think, he's a tough one for coaches because he just makes it's the second coach, right, that's gone through this. He makes mistakes that drive you bananas, but he's becoming a really bona fide big-time offensive player. it's going to take some time before this all comes together, and it may not happen here for all we know. But Ennis right now has a little bit of a low post game. It's not great. It's a little stagnant. He has a three-point shooting game that suddenly has developed. He has a mid-range jumper game that's incredible. His mid-range shooting on the road trip was out of this world. I mean, I think he was 11 of 12 on mid-range shots on the road trip. It's almost, I don't want to get too far along the way. It's Serge Ibaka, LaMarcus Aldridge kind of consistency. If he can suddenly start hitting that, you can decide you don't like the mid-range shot, but if you can suddenly hit 45, 50% of them, it becomes a pretty good shot. He was 10 of 13 on mid-range jumpers on the trip, 3 of 5 from above the break three. For all of our talk about the corner threes, which in Quinn's system are really important, if you can start hitting the upper quadrant three, that's far more important and opens up the offense even more because it forces the big to come out to you in a way that really alters their defense. So 14 points a game in 24 minutes for Ennis, 63% shooting, 50% from the three, and 91% for the line on the road trip. Plus 3.2 on the plus minus. Pretty nice. Trey still scuffling, 31-25. He did average 7 assists a game. That's a lot for Trey. There's another good sign. I thought he really distributed the ball very, very well. Dante may have got a little tired. His plus minus wasn't great. And not as bad as some others, but wasn't great. And he shot 33%, 27% from three. He's still just trying to figure out what he can do and what he can't. Joe got going. Joe Ingles, 44% shooting, 47% from three. So good to see. This offense is good in so many ways. There were a few interesting on-off floor numbers from the road trip. 5-game sample size. You got to be careful with how far you're going to take this. But this, I think, is eye-opening. With Trey Burke on the floor on the road trip, the defensive rating was 115.1. When he's off the floor, it's 97.1. Okay, that's a huge issue. And frankly, there's a chance that Trey is really going to struggle defensively in the NBA. And if that's the case, then it gets to be probably impossible to ask Quinn Snyder to have a good defensive team out there. That gets difficult in a lot of ways. Some of the defensive rating numbers seem, it's hard to tell what's going on entirely with him right now because Favors' defensive rating is we're better when he's off the floor. Is that just because of second group? Alex's defensive rating, frankly, is a contrast on floor and off floor, is about as bad as Trey's. Is that because of Alec? Is that because they're playing together? Again, there's a lot of noise in these numbers, but that is becoming a little bit of a problem. The other one is we simply can't score with Gordon off the floor. It's a season-long issue, but on the road trip with Gordon on the floor, we scored 109 points per 100 possessions, and we were 94 points with him off the floor. Now, to Trey Burke, by the way, we can't score with him off the floor either. So this is, we're in kind of one of these quandaries right now. Trey defensively it was an issue in Toronto. They just isolated him and wore him down. He's probably tired, beat up, and they just went after him on every single play. I've rarely seen someone do that in the NBA. But on the floor right now, his passing so much better. I thought he attacked in the third quarter better than he's ever attacked. I've seen him attack, getting in the paint. May have gained something out of that. Let's watch it, see if he picks something up. But we're averaging 112 points per 100 possessions when he's on the floor, 88 when he's off the floor right now. Really having a hard time scoring. Second unit is having a hard time scoring. It's probably got to be addressed at some point. But I think overall, you look at everything going on with this team right now, it's going in the right direction. It's exciting. The games are awesome. And it's not a surprise to me that when I walk around town, that's what everyone is saying to me about this team is, here, look, hey, you're on the come, you're close. And again, I don't agree with that we're close. I think it's a really long, torturous process that we're going through, and all of us as fans are going to want to accelerate it a great deal from what it is. That's not what it is. It may be my job to slow down the Jones and the excitement on this thing because it's going to be lengthy, but this is part of it. This is enjoyable to me. You're playing good games. You're competing for 48 minutes. You're in the games. You're learning a lot. You're having these big moments. 3 of them have gone our way. Brandon Jennings missing. Trey and Gordon hitting. You can see a lot, and the guys are engaged. The guys are, and Quinn is working them hard. The other one, I had an interesting conversation with, I'll leave out with whom, about some of the stuff we're doing. Here's one thing that's going to happen this year, and I think it's going to be hard, and you're going to have to maybe trust me a little bit on this one for those 12 of you that actually watch this show, and that is we're going to have games where we suck terribly because Quinn works them so hard in practice. There is a point where Quinn, at this point, taking them, let's take this week where you finally get practice days, right? They practice today, and they can practice Wednesday, and they can practice Thursday. There's some argument that Quinn should bury them in practice Wednesday and Thursday at working the drills in the defensive end and trying to get this thing fixed and get these guys to be able to defend and run the schemes and understand it. And then you end up with dead legs Friday and Saturday on a back-to-back, and you lose those games. And the 4 hours or 5 hours maybe of practice time is probably more important than having totally fresh legs for that game. We're not trying to win a championship. So in that sense, those moments are probably more important. And that's going to happen with this team this year, is that there are days where Quinn chooses astutely that we're going to bury practice and really hit practice hard. In exchange, we're going to be dusted along the way. So, realize that. All right, let's go to the questions. We've got a ton of them, and hear what everybody's got. I hope you guys are doing great. All right, let's see. We're 21 minutes in. All right, that's long enough. Congratulations, Ute fans. It sucks. If you're wondering, it sucks. Congratulations. I'm not even happy for you, actually. It just sucks. So I'm really happy for Kyle. I'm really happy for the Ute program. It's an amazing year. I love the fact that there's a bunch of fans who want Kyle fired. They have to go stick their heads where the sun doesn't shine because that was lunacy. I'm really disappointed that Stanford's offense is this bad and that you beat us again. I'm kind of pissed about it. But I thought I'd make you at least wait 21 minutes into the show before you got that pleasure. Would Gobert starting with Favors be contingent on how well they play with Hayward? I don't think you can, as of right now, I don't think you can space the floor with Gobert and Favors. We've got to figure it out, though. They've played 1 minute together all year. At some point in time, we have to figure out whether we can play those guys together. Because, frankly, for the future of the franchise, you got to figure it out. And the spacing's not great. Derek's mid-range jumper is still only about 33%. We could be incredible defensively with that group. We'll see. There's some interesting things going on. Rudy's really got special skills. Rudy has the ability to just do so many things in one play. He can hedge on the pick and roll and then come down and get back to his man and then screen out and then rebound. He's just not strong enough right now on some of this. He really is just not strong enough at all in the lower body, and the rebounding is a little bit of an issue still. The other one is that Trevor is not a great defensive rebounder, as energy laden as he is. Sometimes it shows up there. Our defensive rebounding number, though, frankly, this is pretty interesting. Our defensive rebounding number on Gobert, when Gobert's on the floor, is 69.7% defensive rebounding. The next lowest on the team is Joe Ingles at 71.7%, and then Dante Exum at 72.6%. Trevor Booker, for me just saying he's not great defensive rebounding, is the number. We have the highest defensive rebounding percentage of any player on the team. So I might be up in the night with making that comment. I actually just kind of decided I didn't want to zero in on Rudy and thought it had to do with the Trevor combo, but it might not. I think it has to do with, there was a stat out there recently that Rudy bothers the most shots around the rim. That's great. It might be too much. I don't know the balance here on when Rudy figures out how many times does he go after that compared to how many times he actually rebounds. And the other one is that's bizarre. You understand we're as of this moment in time, we're terrible this year with Rudy on the floor. Right? Like, as great as Rudy, all these parts about Rudy that are so fantastic and you see coming and you like so much about him, we're terrible with him on the floor. We're minus 13 per 100 possessions with him on the floor. Is that Rudy's fault? Maybe not. Maybe Rudy actually has to play with better offensive players rather than playing a second unit. Who knows? These are these are the moments that, these are the kind of dances you got to figure out. It's very complicated. Or, frankly, if Rudy never becomes a good enough offensive player, it's hard to play with primary guys. It's kind of how Roy Hibbert had to become a better offense player, and Roy Hibbert showed on this road trip what he could kind of do against us. It's a pretty fascinating development. These are the kind of things right now for this team. But that defensive rebounding thing with Rudy is a pretty big deal. The other one is Trevor Booker's plus minus is not as good as I would have thought it was, and I tried to keep an eye on it, and I don't really know what it is, but my only thought on it is you'll watch him. He makes a ton of plays. He gambles a bunch of times, and sometimes for each good play he makes, there's always an oops play along the way. So anyway, let's watch it all happen. I love Trevor. There's a lot to like about each of these guys. What's the status on Hood, and do you think he will play the OKC game on Tuesday? No. I don't think he'll play on Tuesday. I think that plantar fasciitis is brutal. And guys miss a lot of time. Like Adrian Payne hasn't played yet for Atlanta because of it. He clearly thought he was close in the New York game, went through shoot around, realized he wasn't as close. So we'll see how he does. He was back in the boot leaving the locker room from Toronto. So we'll see. That could just be flight and all that kind of stuff. Philip Malone, you noted on Tripper Jazz, most road games, that seems to happen the last couple of years. Is there a reason? It does seem to happen every year. It will straighten out a little bit more this year than it used to. Last year we got hit with an extra road trip in December, and we were on the wrong side of it pretty badly. I think before we go on that East Coast road trip, we'll probably be back on the correct side middle of December. I'm pretty curious to watch the next 10 games, by the way. Here are the next 10 games. And if you kind of think about it as in really, really good team and not as great a team. Oklahoma City, not as great. Golden State, great. New Orleans, great, really good. Chicago, really good. Oklahoma City right now, not as good. Clippers, really, really good. Denver, not as good. Toronto, really, really good. Orlando, not as good. Sacramento, pretty good. So 6 of our next 4 games are against really good teams, but it's not crazy. Should be interesting to see how we deal with it. From Forrest Scott, could Dante Exum be a Monte Ellis type player? No. I don't see that at all. That's a one-dimensional offensive scorer. If anything, Dante's really tentative right now to go to the basket. I would like to see him start driving and go to the basket. He gets hit, and he gets hit hard, and he's really small, and he's not very strong right now, which is why he doesn't want to do that kind of stuff. He hasn't made a shot outside 10 feet off the bounce yet. I mean, there's still huge holes in his game. But Monte Ellis is just a bona fide ass-kicking scorer. Dante's an instinct pass first. The offense is, here's an interesting number. Let's look and see if this is still true. The offense with Dante Exum on the floor was for a while better. It's not as good. It's now less good with him on the floor than off, with that second unit. So the defense is a little better with him on the floor, and on the road trip, I think the offense really struggled with him on the floor. He's got time to go. Is there any logic if the second using to struggle to score to move Alec Burks back to 6th man and start my boy Jumpin' Joe Ingles? You owe me a follow on Twitter. I'm probably not going to follow you on Twitter. I might put you in a list somewhere that I see you, but I follow very few. I have a mass list I never look at. Everything else is lists. But thank you, Philip. I do love your Australian love that you give us, though, so don't misunderstand that. Alec back. The interesting thing is that unit that you're addressing, the bench with Alec is not been good. Alec has not shown yet this year the ability to carry an offensive unit the way I think we all think he could. Let me see if I can find that for you. The sample size is really small, but it's nice. Our starters right now are plus 5.9. The bench unit of Booker, Exum, Gobert, and Ingles with Hayward is plus 21.5. So you put the 2 passers out there with Gordon, or 3 passers with Gordon, Ingles, and Dante, and the length, and that team, and Booker's a good passer, it becomes pretty good. The bench unit with Dante, Alec, Joe, Trevor, and Rudy is minus 11 and can't score. With Alec with the 4 bench players is the worst offensive unit we have other than Rudy Gobert in for Derek Favors and the starting unit. That group has been just awful. Dear God, Derek Favors gets hurt this year. We're in trouble. He's so vital to this team. Not both the big guys are. That's what they should be. But that group is minus 11. 89 points offensively, 100.1 defensively. We've just got to find, Quinn's got to work this dance a little bit, because if you start looking at the lineups, the first lineup that plays the most with Rudy on the floor is 87.8 defensively. That's pretty good. The next lineup with Rudy's 100.1. That's fine. The next lineup with Rudy goes to 104.8. That's that bad lineup I just talked about. Then you only are down to 12 minutes, and suddenly some of it gets pretty ugly, but the sample size is probably not large enough to see. So you can see that with certain lineups, Rudy really has a big impact to the game defensively. But how do we play offensively? Our starters are awesome offensively. 117.4. They probably have had the most time together as a group, the most time playing Quinn's offensive system. It's the third best five-man unit in the NBA offensively right now. They're really good. And that's pretty exciting. Final thing from Oren Levy. You said the second unit doesn't really exist, and the starters are the only lineup to get significant playing time together, so teams should start their best five. Please elaborate on how do the Spurs use that rotation differently. So we're close right now with – so just if you think about it, even this bench – our starters have played 143 minutes together. The next most common lineup is Hayward – is Booker in for Cantor. That's played 46 minutes together. So 190 of our 528 minutes on the floor have happened with basically those six guys. So far this year, we've played 528 minutes. We're talking 36% of our minutes played this year are with only six guys. Trevor in for Ennis. So, maybe if you're the Spurs, you're 10 deep, you're a different team, and they're the anomaly. But on a team that's not, particularly deep or great, your starting unit better be your best five, because they're going to spend dramatically more time on the floor together than anyone else. The Spurs are dramatically different. Their starting unit, but they also have not, their starting units only played 4 games together this year. So they've played 43 minutes. If we go to last year on the Spurs, I'm pulling it up as we speak. It takes a while to run this report. I don't know what we're going to find, but they do with Manu. They do things a little bit differently, but they also have a Hall of Famer 6-man coming off the bench. But you look at almost any team randomly across the NBA. The Spurs starters last year played only 30 games together all year. That's incredible. The Spurs last year had no 5-man lineup, according to these data. This is hard to believe. They played more than 42 games together. That's how they do it. That's amazing. Give me somebody in the chat room, post up any team name in the league for me on the chat room. Not the Spurs, not the Jazz. Just give me any team name in the chat room quickly. If somebody's there, can do it. I will randomly go to that team if somebody throws a chat room team up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nobody in the chat room is awake. Philip is quickly walking toward his phone to try to see or toward his computer to enter in something for me. All right, Warriors. Whoever just unmuted themselves, please mute themselves back. Thank you. All right, so Philip gives me the Warriors. Philip's from Australia in the room today. We're back to our international crew. Some of our other international guys have all disappeared. All right, here's the Warriors. Last year, their starters played 819 minutes together. Their second unit, which is Harrison Barnes instead of Andre Iguodala, played 316 minutes together. So if you do the math there, they ended up playing, those two groups ended up playing 29, those six guys, that two groups played 29% of their minutes over the season. With injuries and everything else, particularly to Bogut and Lee, that's incredible, right? Because that starting unit only played 44 games together last year. So their first unit played 819. Their second played 316. Their next, which was a starting unit due to injury with Jermaine O'Neal, played 108. The amazing one might be Portland. I will pull this up and then we'll wrap this up, because I got to get to the gym and get to practice. Portland, I think their starters played 80 games together last year, which is why a lot of us thought this year's Portland team would be the team involved. Their starters played 69 games together, which seems wrong. I think they played 80. Maybe some of these numbers aren't exactly perfect, but this is incredible. Portland's starting unit played 1,373 minutes together last year. Their second unit played 213. That's why you got to start your 5 best. Well, that's what we're doing. That's what you got to do, and that's why our starting 5 is good. The fact that our starting 5 is good is really, really important. It's a big deal, and it's really exciting. And on that note, thanks for having a cup of coffee with me this morning. Hope you have a nice day. I'll be back with you tomorrow. Actually, we're tentative. I got a lot of stuff tomorrow. We may have to do like 6:10 in the morning or not do it. Depends. Maybe a not do it. I may not be able to get it done tomorrow and get the kids out and get to an event in the morning and everything else I need to do. We're tentative for tomorrow. Talk to you soon.